Hello and welcome to Team Reptile Adventures. One of the areas of Michigan that we really like to explore is just outside of the city of Mount Pleasant. We tend to have really good luck there when it comes to finding some unique species of wildlife, so it's probably no surprise that we made quite a few trips there during the summer of 2005. One of our first trips to the Mount Pleasant area was to take some leopard frogs back to where we had caught them the previous summer. Out of the 6 leopard frogs that we had caught here, 3 of them had mutations, so we had decided to take all 6 of them and keep them for a while to observe and study their behaviors. Now, after almost a year, we felt that we had collected enough data and therefore were ready to return the frogs back to their original habitat. All of these guys have grown quite a bit since last year when we first caught them. And one of the things that's really impressed me during this past year is that this one right here, we had found 3 that had mutations, and this one was missing part of its back leg, and it's actually been, now a couple of the others have caught up, but it was the fastest growing out of all of them, where the one 5-legged frog we had actually died, and not too long after. He had a real tough time moving. And then also one of the other ones that was missing part of its back leg, more of its back leg, is the smallest we have right now. So it's kind of neat to see that one of the mutations actually grew faster than any of the others. He really does try to hold that in. He knows, it's like instinctive, that there's a problem with it, and he tends to tuck it right in there. And it definitely limits his jumping ability, and that's one of the reasons we've kept him during this time too, is to let them grow some so they can better protect themselves. And actually basically be able to get away faster is the key. They don't really do a whole lot to protect themselves other than just simple evasion from predators. One of the reasons that this leopard frog had adapted so well to its physical abnormality was because it was only missing a small portion of one of the back legs. One of the other leopard frogs, however, was missing most of one of its hind limbs, and that had definitely had an impact on its growth and development. Now, this little guy has actually grown a decent amount since last year, however, nothing like the other leopard frogs did. And you can see part of the reason is why is that back stubby leg like that makes it very difficult for him to move around. He just doesn't do as well. I'm concerned about how he's going to do out here on his own, but yet at the same time I really feel as though we should let him go where we found him, and hopefully he'll do all right. I know there's a very healthy leopard frog population out here. So as long as he can fend for himself with the eating, which there's plenty of insects, but the toughest part is the number of predators out here. So I'm hoping that he stays fairly burrowed. He tends to do that when he was in the unnatural habitat with the other frogs, just in a large aquarium setting. He tended to hide more than the others did. So hopefully he'll keep that. That's generally what smaller leopard frogs do. So hopefully he'll keep that habit of staying fairly hidden, or fairly well hidden. And hopefully that'll mean he'll survive quite a while. Now, we actually caught all of these right in this general location. The little guy here, because the water level's up some and we're not seeing any leopard frogs right along the edge here, the little guy I'm actually going to walk back a little bit and put him in one of the shallow spots, because some boats do launch right here, and this is where we found him, but I think he'd be better off just a little further off to the right now. I'm just going to simply put him right down in the water and even give him a little boost, and hopefully he'll get into some, there he goes, he's getting into some vegetation down there, which that'll help camouflage him in. That vegetation will help camouflage him to the background there, and hopefully he can stay hidden from some predators. The bigger ones we'll go ahead and let go right in the same general area here too. If it wasn't for the fact that I already knew where I let that little one go, I'd have a tough time picking him out right now because of the way his background just matches in right there. Squish, squish, squish. Let's go ahead and let these go down in here also. Try to find a nice little water spot. Get them down in the vegetation. And I made sure I fed each of these frogs quite a few crickets before we let them go, just to make sure that they already have a decent amount of protein and energy within them, because it's still getting fairly cold at night. They've been outside for a while now, even downstate, where they've been able to become a little more acclimated to the temperature change rather than being in the house, which is where we had them for a while in our office. And now that they've gotten adjusted to being outside, I felt it was a good time to go ahead and let them go up here. It's not getting too cold at night, but still dropping down to the upper 40s and mid 50s, which isn't too bad for them. But if it got much colder than that, it could be real difficult for them, especially not being completely used to being outside constantly.
Now that we had let all the leopard frogs go, we decided to make our way over to another lake so we could search for some other species of wildlife, including a unique species of bird.
We're on a small lake here in the Wademan area in Michigan, and one of the main reasons we've come out on this lake isn't actually for turtles, although of course we're looking for turtles because that's what I love to do. That's my favorite thing. That's kind of neat because I got a guy who calls me Turtle Man all the time, and I really like that. But the reason we're actually out here is because the common loon, which is a bird that a lot of people are familiar with, they know what it looks like, but they don't often see them in the wild. There are definitely some common loons on this lake. My father-in-law has been out here fishing before. He's told us about it, and we've actually already seen a couple while we've been out here. We saw a painted turtle go down over there. We've seen a couple since we've come out here, and one of the neat things about loons is they eat fish and they eat insects, but they use their eyesight to detect them underwater, and they'll actually dive underwater to catch them. In fact, their legs are set so far back on their body compared to their head that it's difficult. It's funny to see them walk. They walk pretty lopsided, like funny, but they swim incredible because they have the feet back so far. It helps them dive and helps them swim. Well, they need clear lakes, clear ponds to really be able to see the fish and the insects. And since we've come out on this lake here, it's really neat to be able to see the fish and turtles swimming underwater, and I can see why there's a decent population of loons out on this lake here. So hopefully we'll be lucky enough to actually see them swimming around, maybe even get to watch them dive. They'll dive under and disappear for a little bit and then pop up somewhere else. So hopefully we'll get to see some of that in action.
As we made our way around the lake in search of the loons, we saw quite a few painted turtles basking on logs. We decided to scoop one of these turtles up so we could get a closer look at the characteristics of this lake's painter population.
Look at this painted turtle. Now, painters are our most common turtle in Michigan. He's got a big leech on him too. The leech can't do a lot on the shell. He's probably attached to the shell, but he can't really do much because the shell's made of bone. But when he attaches under the legs and on the skin, then he can, leech is a parasite, so it's obviously going to take the blood, suck the blood out of the turtle. So I'm going to flip the leech off into the water before he gets too far. And you can see how the leeches move. They attach and they just pull themselves along. So we're going to let this leech fly into the water. This is definitely a male, no doubt in my mind. Those are some long nails, which the males use, the male painted turtles use to hold on to the female during breeding season. And this is an adult male. I'm guessing it's probably 8 or 9 years old, just judging by the size. They grow pretty fast when they're real small, and he'll probably get a little bit bigger than this, but not a lot bigger, not as big as the females. The females get much bigger in the painted turtle species because the females need to be able to carry eggs. And the males usually have a flatter dome. This one has a very flat dome, so it's another reason I can tell it's a male. And also because it has a vent, you can tell it's kind of thick down there, and that looks like a leech. It is. It's a small leech along the vent area, and it's a baby leech actually. I'm going to toss it out. But when the vent area is beyond or past the carapace is the top shell, this is the carapace, this is the plastron, and when it is beyond that point, beyond the edge of this carapace, then it's usually a male. You can tell it's a male that way.
These markings are cool.
Yeah, it's really neat. The markings on the plastron, it's really unusual because generally there can be a dark marking. That's how you tell that it's a Midland painted turtle, or one of the ways you can tell. And what's really neat to see here is this one actually has some red on it.
That was a cool looking plastron.
Plastron, yeah.
Look like a shield, like a family crest, you know?
Magical mist.
Bred for its skills in magic.
You hear that?
Mm-hmm.
That's thunder, isn't it?
Might be. Look at the clouds.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good.
Nope.
After we heard the thunder, we decided we better start making our way back toward shore, which is when we finally ended up spotting the lake's pair of loons. It's hard to tell with the loons because we really don't want to disturb them. That's not our goal. But with this pair right here, it's really neat for us just to get this close to them and see how pretty they are with that checkerboard pattern and the black head, and especially the red eye. They have that dark, deep red eye. And it's just beautiful. I've never been this close to them before, especially in the wild. And they're, it's so neat to watch them. And we've already got to watch the one dive down. It didn't stay down for long, but we did get to watch it dive down. And hopefully, that one swimming on it, it just rolled over and swam on its back. I've never seen anything like that before. It kind of rolled over a little bit, was on its back, like pruning itself, picking away a little bit at the down on its underside. That was really cool. The common loon, which is also known as the great northern diver, is listed as a threatened species here in Michigan. Loss of habitat and water pollution are two of the major contributing factors in the decline of this beautiful species of bird. We drifted along and watched these two loons for a while, which by the way mate for life, but the wind was beginning to pick up and it was also starting to thunder again, so we decided to head in. We were back out on this lake again the next day, however, but this time in search of a species of turtle that's on Michigan's list of species of special concern. Our first catch of the day was once again a Midland painted turtle, with this one being a female. This gave us a great opportunity to talk about the differences between the female painted turtle as compared to the male painter we had caught the day before. We just caught this other painted turtle that Amy happened to see swimming underwater there as we passed by, and I kind of took a blind scoop because it had burrowed down a little bit and ended up coming up with it. And the reason we want to show this one in particular is because we were talking about the male and how long their nails were, which these are still fairly long nails, but they're actually a little bit shorter. The vent right here, which she's going to curl her tail under, but the vent is actually right at the edge of the carapace, which is another characteristic of a female. And even though she's small and probably only 2 or 3 years old, she's already beginning to get that higher dome. This one definitely has a higher dome than the last one we had. Now why, I know this turtle's asking, and also maybe you at home are asking, why would a female have a higher dome? Well, the reason they'd have a higher dome is actually because they need to be able to carry eggs. Painted turtles will lay, big female painted turtles will lay anywhere from 2 to about 15 eggs. It depends. I've seen them lay just a couple, and I've also seen them lay up to a dozen, and I know they can probably lay close to 15. I'm guessing some of the largest females, and they need to be able to carry those eggs. Well, if they're real flat, it doesn't give them as much carrying space. Well, with the higher dome, that allows them to have the capacity to hold more eggs within their body. Not too long after we let this painter go, Amy caught another female painted turtle with an unusual plastron.
Okay, we caught another female painted turtle. We could tell that because she has the higher dome. And we know it's a painted turtle because just like an artist would paint it, it has some red along the sides and the side of its neck. Ooh, it's got its mouth open. And it also has some yellow right on its head. What's unusual about this one that we found, most turtles have annuli that you can see the ridges and count them to kind of determine about how old it is. Well, what's unusual about this one is that underneath it also has ridges, which are the annuli, and we counted both sides, and both sides added up to either 4 or 5 annuli in each section. So she's about 4 or 5 years old.
I thought it was really cool that we had found this turtle with annuli showing on the lower shell, especially since it's a characteristic that I've only seen a few times before on turtles. I think this turtle might have brought us a little luck too, because it wasn't long after we let her go that we found the species of turtle that we had been searching for.
Yeah, I thought I just saw one too.
Right, straight ahead?
Uh-huh. It just went down
Oh, no.
a little while ago. Saw the yellow chin.
Oh, it is a Blandings. I'm positive. I just saw it blink. I'm going to try to find a way to get around to it.
Now, if it wasn't mucky, I'd get out and get it.
I was determined to follow this Blanding's turtle, which meant that I was going to have to take us back into an area where probably very few boats had been before.
Working, you know.
Now, will we ever be able to get out of here?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, honey. There it is. See it, Ted?
No.
Right next to you.
There it is.
That is a big one.
Big Blanding's turtle.
We just caught my very, very favorite turtle. This is a Blanding's turtle, and this is definitely the most unique looking one I've ever seen and heard. I've heard turtles hiss, but I've never heard them make noises like that, almost like a it's almost like, ow, they have some long, strong nails. But it's almost like it's saying, phone home. Ow! She's actually, is it a she? Yes, it is definitely a female. I assume so because she's so big. But it's almost like she's saying, phone home, phone home. She's big. She's got some big old nails that are tearing me up. Blanding's turtles are very recognizable for two reasons. One reason is they have a smile. If you see on her face, the way her jaw is hinged, she gets a smile. Or it almost looks like she's always smiling, like there's a permanent smile on her face because of the way the jaw hinge is, and she is just tearing me up. But you can see right there the way the jaw comes up to a curve to hook up the upper and lower jaws. It looks like she's got a smile on her face. The other way to tell the difference between Blanding's turtles and any other Michigan turtle is the yellow throat. They have a very long neck with a beautiful yellow throat, and we'll see if she ends up sticking her head out to show. When you flip them underneath, they usually have, quite often it's rectangular. On her, these black blotches are kind of mixed in, but usually what happens is you'll have a black blotch rectangle, and then you'll have it just the bottom plastering color. Whoa! Something else I just noticed on this Blanding's, which is really neat too, and on a previous episode we talked about reptile adaptations and snapping turtles that we caught up in the Upper Peninsula in the Paradise area, which is on the it's more in the northeast region of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and we noticed very different body armor on them compared to the snapping turtles we find down here in lower Michigan. They were covered much more on their plastron. Their legs had more armor on them. Their shells were much more, all turtle shells are made of bone, but it was a very strong bone structure with more definition on it, more lumps on it for protection. And this Blanding's turtle, what I'm seeing on it is that the armor, the scales on the legs, are much more heavily armored than some of the Blanding's turtles that I found down in southeastern Michigan. I saw a big snapping turtle here a minute ago, and I keep seeing things move around, so I'm looking to see if, you know, maybe there's a chance that we'll find another Blanding's right here or some other species of turtle. We know there's wood turtle in the area here because we found one a couple years ago when we were actually on the Chippewa River, but I doubt I would find them out in this type of habitat. It doesn't surprise me to find a Blanding's turtle, especially because there's not a lot of houses. There's a lot of great area here, terrestrial habitat that is uninhabited by people, and there's not a lot of roads right in the immediate area, so it's very possible that there's just a great breeding population right in this area. Alright, as much as I love the Blanding's turtle, and being that they are my very favorite turtle of all time, I'm going to have to let her go. I know she's excited about it, but I'm always kind of sad because I do like turtles so much. However, I know how important it is to let her go, so I want to make sure that we do that. And this is, I'm not going to let her go on the one side of the boat where I found her. The only reason for that is because I need to be able to push us off. I really took us into some shallow stuff here, and I don't want to take the chance of hurting her when I push. And on this side of the boat, I don't have to worry as much about that. There you go. Look at her go. She's like, I want out of here.
The release of the Blanding's turtle brought an end to our day as well as our mid-Michigan adventure. I was confident, however, that although we had only found one Blanding's turtle on this trip, the lake was an ideal habitat for the turtle and there were probably more. With the Blanding's turtle being listed as a species of special concern by the state of Michigan, we decided we should find out if that was the case.
Well, it's been almost one full year now since the time we caught that Blanding's turtle, and we're back out on the same lake just to kind of check it out, see if we can maybe find some other species of animals, and also at the same time see if maybe we can find some more Blanding's turtles to see if there is a good healthy population of Blanding's turtles on this lake.
Our first find of the day, which was right next to the boat launch, were some kingbirds that seemed just as curious about us as we were of them.
Well, it sure didn't take too long. We actually just came around the corner a little bit here. I think I've rode probably 3 or 4 minutes tops, and Amy looked down in the water and she saw this Blanding's turtle. Definitely a female. The vent is inside the carapace area there. It is missing part of its tail. I just happened to notice that. Part of the tail here is looks like it's been cut off, even a little sensitive because she's tucking it in there. But it looks like there's some damage here even to the back of the shell, so I'm wondering if she's been hit by a motor or something like that, or if something did some damage. Even the back of the shell here, there's some separation right here along one of the scoots, and this right here, I don't want to move it anymore because it feels like it could snap right off, but I don't want to move it anymore. But it's real loose and even broken right in there. Oh, those nails are sharp and powerful nails. But beautiful turtle, looks very healthy other than some of the damage there to the shell and the tail. But front portion, I don't see any missing limbs. There is, oh, you know what? It looks like she's had some damage to the left eye also. Yeah, it looks like maybe a little damage to the left eye.
We decided to take a closer look at the turtle's left eye and even try to find out if it could see out of it.
She's a pretty turtle.
There she is.
I wonder if she can see over here. Nope.
No, she's blind on that side.
Although she seemed to be blind in her left eye, she was pretty healthy overall, so we decided to let her go back into the lake. We then started to make our way over to an area where I hoped to find some amphibian life.
Alright. Definitely a green frog that I just caught here, which is good because one of the things we were curious about was the amphibian life here on the lake. Figured there was probably a healthy amphibian population here, at least frog population, especially green frogs. And I see a few within this pocket here, even seeing a large adult back there that I may try to get. This one right here is just a juvenile. So the other thing too that we caught here though was at least one painted turtle, possibly two. I'm going to check those out. I'd say that's a pretty impressive catch when you come up with a green frog and 2 painted turtles. Juvenile is probably 1.5 years, 2 years old. And this one right here is definitely, I'm going to call it a hatchling, although I'm sure it's been, it probably hatched a little while ago. It may have even hatched. It's one of the neat things about painted turtles is sometimes they'll hatch in the fall, but they'll overwinter in the nesting site. They have the yolk sac to keep them nourished, and then they'll actually hibernate within that chamber, and then in the spring when the ground thaws, they'll actually come out of the ground then and move to the water. So it's also possible that happened. But I think that's a pretty cool adaptation where a turtle will, they'll hatch, but because the environmental conditions are already, becoming colder, where they're going to have to hibernate anyways, why make the travel? Why use up the energy when you can just sit in the nesting site, and rest from that point until the time when you can go out and actually, hunt for food and bask in the sun, that type of thing. Well, this is a very good sign for the amphibian population here on this lake, and that is that I just found some hatchling green frog tadpoles, and they take 1 year to 2 years to go through metamorphosis. So these are very recently hatched from the eggs. I would say probably a week or two, judging on the size. And so they will spend this summer, winter, and spring in this lake. Now I just caught a couple larger green frog tadpoles, and that gives you an indication of the size difference from when they go through the hatching from their eggs, or very close to the point where they go through the hatching of their eggs, until at least a year later. One of these, this one right here, is actually starting to sprout very tiny hind limbs. So those are starting to develop, and over the next few days to a week or two, they'll become basically full hind limbs.
After we let the tadpoles go, I was finally able to catch that adult green frog that I had spotted earlier, and also determined that it was a female. We then made our way over to where we had caught the female Blanding's turtle the year before, and boy were we glad we did.
All right, now this is a great sign. We've come back over to where we caught the Blanding's turtle last year, and found this one right here. And this one, good, very nice. This is a male. The vent's past the edge of the carapace. The dome is concave, and it has some very long nails. Definitely a male, which is a great sign. That means that should have a breeding population on this lake. So found a male and a female today, which obviously you need at least one male and one female to have a breeding population on the lake, and we found that today. Well, our mission is complete. We found a male Blanding's turtle today and a female Blanding's turtle. This lake is definitely a great habitat for the Blanding's turtle, the common loon, and obviously a good place for amphibian life. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Team Reptile Adventures.